Welcome to the program. I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Jamie-Lynn Sigler's here with us. Brand new movie, Mobtown. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Really good.
Good.
Really nice to meet you. Really great performance in this movie.
Thanks.
And you've been around the whole mob world throughout your career, but like this was a different kind of movie based on true events.
Yes.
What was the appeal for you in doing this?
I think just that. It was a different type of mob film. I felt like it was like a throwback to the mob films I always liked, all those Scorsese ones where there was a little bit of everything. I mean, you have like what you expect in a mob movie, which is, you know, the violence and the drama and the suspense, but you have like a little bit of a love story and you have these crazy characters, and then I got to be one of those crazy characters, and that was the main appeal for me. I mean, I don't really get a chance to play people like her, and you know, especially in the 1950s, she's not your typical 1950s housewife.
Definitely
I mean,
not,
she is
no.
outspoken, she is right nose to nose with her husband, literally and figuratively, and Danny, who plays my husband and directed the film, him and I have known each other for 20 years, and we have a rapport, and so it was like magic on the set because we would just improv, like we knew who these characters were, and it was so much fun.
That's the beauty of it. If you can just improv and riff on a character, like that's when it's freest, that's when it's at its best. But like you said, you haven't played a character like this who's just totally free, so what are some of the challenges in kind of just unleashing in that sense?
It's like the opposite of a challenge. It's like the most liberating thing, because I think once you lock into who this person is, and then the beauty of doing anything, period, is that the clothes, the hair, the makeup, like really informs you, and you really kind of feel like transformed, and you kind of start holding yourself a little bit differently, and then you throw the accent on top, and it was like Josephine was just right there for me. So I just couldn't wait to play. And there's other times where you want me to improv and I'm playing somebody that's like present day, who's similar to my personality, and I kind of lock up because it's hard. But with characters like this, they're so right there in the page, it was the most fun.
How long did the accent take to nail?
Well, I'm from New York.
Right.
I had a very heavy New York accent much of my life, and it's kind of slowly gone away. So it just takes like a day or two, and then it comes right back in.
Did you take voice lessons or anything like that?
No.
It just kind of faded over time?
I kind of had the ear for it, I guess.
Well, because when did you finally move out of New York? How long?
I moved to LA when I was 20, right when Sopranos finished, so when I was 26.
Okay.
So I've been there almost 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this since you were a kid.
Yes.
I mean, that's the crazy part of it. Like, take me back to when this is all first starting. Like, what are some of the early memories for you?
I mean, I did community theater as a kid on Long Island. I mean, that was everything. It might as well have been Broadway. It was the biggest deal. It was everything. But what I'm grateful for is that I went to public school in Jericho, Long Island, up while I was filming Sopranos. So I really had such a balance of like, as I was building this little dream of mine, and then to see it come to fruition at the age of 16 when I booked The Sopranos, but still have like my friends and my normal life. I'm very grateful for that. And then even once that was all done and we just continued with the show and I moved into Manhattan, I mean, it was such an isolated experience here. It wasn't very Hollywood. I mean, this was before social media and like the paparazzi, so it was just kind of like, this is my job, and I go home and I go to parties that Danny A calls me about, you know? So I'm so lucky that that's kind of how I grew up in the business.
Have you thought about how different it would have been with social media, whether it was you as a kid actor or just that show in general? Yes,
I mean, just as a teenager in general, but yes, I think it would have been much different. I also too, I mean, like I joined Instagram, I think when I was like in my 30s. So it doesn't hold as much value in my life. Like to me, it's fun. I love to see people's pictures. It's a highlight reel, but like I hold no weight on like my followers. Like I like interacting, but I think it would have meant a lot more to me back then. Yeah,
definitely. So when you think about your career, how have you built it out? How have you sustained success? Because Hollywood, there's a lot of ebbs and flows, and I'm sure you've seen it.
I've had them all.
Yeah, so what have those parts of your career been like, where it's the highest of highs and also the times where the phone's not really ringing?
For sure. They're rough. It's hard, and you start to kind of question what you're doing, why you're doing it, especially once I had kids, because then I'm just like, I don't want to, I'm paying somebody full-time to watch my kids just in case I get a job so that I you know, it's all of those adult things that have to come into play. I quit acting actually maybe a year ago, year and a half ago. And then I just kind of needed a break. I needed to kind of be off the hook, not be waiting for a phone to ring, not be hustling, auditioning. I just needed to see if it really mattered to me anymore. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a couple of months, and I loved it, and I love all the time I was spending with my kids, but I had this like visceral moment where I was like, almost lost my breath, where I was like, there's something still missing. So I went and joined an acting class just to make sure that's completely what it's about. I just missed like trying to figure things out. Every role is different. Every job I get, I find out something new about myself. I feel like I'm a better actress. And so my team, when I quit, weren't very happy about it, which was also nice too, because I thought they were gonna be like, okay, like Godspeed, good luck, get in touch. But sometimes you need to be reminded that people believe in you. And so that was wonderful. And then as soon as I came back, like it's just the way the universe works. I just haven't stopped working since, and it's been great. That's really
interesting. Yeah, sometimes you need a break from something, especially for you. It had been in your life for such a long time. Had you taken professional acting classes?
No.
So that was the first time after everything you've done that you're jumping in. I'm sure people are looking around like, wait, Jamie's here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah,
that must have been pretty cool.
I don't know. I felt like the old broad in class. Like everyone was 18, like from whatever state they were at, just moved to LA. But I every Tuesday I would be nervous for class, like to put my scene up, and I loved that. It's I think what I felt like I was always missing, like because I had success so young and so quick, and even though I was doing theater and performing, I never had like that acting class experience. It really made me realize why I want to do this.
And you're also around a ton of adults while you were doing all your stuff. I mean, you're 18 years old, and you're on the set of Sopranos, it's all grown men and women. That's a totally different experience of being in an acting class with people 18, 19, 20 years old.
Exactly.
So when we talk about the Sopranos, it changed TV, it was a life changer for you. What are some things we don't talk enough about? Like what still sticks out in your mind about just your favorite memories of it?
Oh God, you know, I say this all the time, but it was like, to me, Sopranos is such a personal thing. Like I can appreciate and understand now after all this time like what the value of the show is to people, because I think with the quality of television that's out there now and like the shows that I love and think are so amazing, I get how people feel about the Sopranos, and I also now can, as I'm older, appreciate like what I got to be a part of. But it was more about the people and the connections and like that safe place and that home, because I went through so much in the 10 years that we shot it. And it was my formative years, when 16, 17, 18, all the way till I was 26. Those were my people, like that accepted me no matter what, whatever size I was, if I was married or divorced, whatever was going on in my life, like those were my friends that could catch me other than my family. And that whole experience, just the great people that were involved, like they were great actors, but they were great, great humans.
Yeah, especially given everything you went through in your life, to have one consistent thing going throughout, that must have been a really comforting thing.
Exactly.
When you think about James Gandolfini, what are some of the big things that come to mind? Because like you said, like he's a great actor, but just as a person, like what are some memories you have of him?
The most humble, like shockingly humble, almost insecure talent. The biggest presence, like you could be facing the wall and have earplugs in and you'd know he walked in the room. You just felt him. The most generous, kindest, but like so respectful. I remember when I was going through certain things, like you could see that he wanted to ask, but he didn't ever want to pry. Like he never wanted to be the guy that was like, because I'm, you know, the lead of the show and the star, you know, you're obviously going to want to tell me. Like he was so respectful, and so just gentle and wonderful. I loved him.
Do you remember the last time you saw him or talked to him?
Yes, I saw him about 4 months before he died, and I got to tell him I was pregnant.
Wow, that's cool.
And spend a whole evening with him, and we just like talked and caught up in life, and he was just the best.
That's really cool. So that's a show that's up there for people. What are some of your favorite shows of all time when you think about it?
Cool. Let's see. Well, right now I'm watching Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, so
I'm in
good,
season 3. Oh.
Amazing. Think about how far TV has come, like since the Sopranos to now.
I know.
Like, it's insane.
It's insane. Let's see. I'm finishing Unbreakable also on Netflix. I like these miniseries. Escape at Dannemora was so good. The Act I also just finished. Dead to Me was fun.
There's a lot of good
I clearly
stuff
like a lot of the streaming stuff.
I see that.
Yeah. I still have never seen Breaking Bad.
Really?
I know I need to.
It takes a little while to get into it, but It's a good
Yes,
one.
that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And Game of Thrones I haven't
I've never
seen.
done Thrones
Okay,
either.
cool,
Yeah.
great. I'm not the only one.
Everybody else around here is like obsessed with it.
Yes.
It wasn't really my scene.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
one
One
day.
day.
My kids are small. I have
got
very
time.
little time.
How about Entourage? I really enjoyed that
Well,
one.
I loved
I mean,
Entourage,
that must have been a
yes.
cool experience for you as
It
well.
was, and was actually, I didn't even know at the time, but like the best thing I could have done coming off The Sopranos, because it's the channel everyone knows me from. Most Sopranos fans probably watched Entourage.
Right.
I'm playing a fictionalized version of myself. We reference Meadow, but it was like able to like slowly step out of those shoes and have people see me a little bit differently, because it's sort of a double-edged sword of anything that you're a part of that's, you know, any iconic level, the
Absolutely.
way people viewed Sopranos, where they were always going to see me as Meadow, no matter what. So it was like the perfect gift to be given. I was supposed to only just do a one-off cameo,
Really?
that one episode with the plane and throwing the drink in his face. And then they loved Jerry and I's chemistry and asked if I would come back for another. And then Doug Allen, the creator, was like, what if you guys dated next year? And we were like, great. And then Jerry and I just started dating in real life at the time because, you know, we were
Just a
working
natural
together and
extension
fell in
of it.
love, yeah.
It's funny how that goes.
It
too.
is.
That's really interesting, because that was probably the best case scenario, because you don't want to get pigeonholed in that one character. You get to play yourself in a sense,
Yes,
right? And people get to kind of
exactly.
find out, all right, who's Jamie away from this character?
Exactly.
So after that, like, what's it been like just making sure, like, there's much more to you than just that one character, but what's it been like trying to prove that to people outside of the one show?
I tried to take the pressure of like the proving. I felt it for a minute, but then I realized like it was just a battle that wasn't worth fighting. It's just been slow. You know, I think I've done a lot of things that people have seen that haven't seen, but I do feel like I've gotten to play around. But I've taken, other than that time I quit, like I've taken a lot of months off. My husband, when I met him, was a minor league baseball player, and I supported his dream for a
Right.
couple of years and put my career on the back burner. We had our first child in that time too. And so I feel like it's been baby steps, and just now I feel like I'm like gaining momentum again, where I'm playing women.
Yeah.
Like people don't view me as a little girl anymore. I mean, I'm 38. I'm an older gal here.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm appreciating this sort of like second chapter right now.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned baseball, obviously a big part of your story with your husband and Lenny Dykstra being your father-in-law. What was it like seeing your husband go through the minors? Because like that's a really rough life, and people don't understand just how little you're getting paid, the awful bus rides, the number of games and days. So what was the craziest part for you and your
It
husband?
is such a grind.
Yeah.
I live in host family's house with him, with our kid.
What state were you guys in at this point?
So when I met him, he was in Lowe.
Okay, yep.
In Harrisburg, in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Oof, okay.
Okay, so that's how much he knew I loved him. And we would stay in hotels in Hagerstown, and then the next year he was in High A in Potomac, and then we went to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and then ended up in Syracuse in AAA.
Right.
And then he kind of did that dance for a little while, and then he kind of just made the decision to leave, which was really hard, and still to this day so admirable. I think it was just kind of like, you know, at 27, how
Right.
old he was then, like the window was getting smaller. You're just waiting for somebody to get hurt. You know, it's not that you're not good enough. You're literally waiting for a window.
Right, there's only a certain number of spots. There's 25 guys on a Major League Baseball roster.
Exactly.
And AAA, like you're right there. You
You're
can smell it.
right
You're so
there.
close, but at the same time, you got to be honest with yourself too.
And they're signing new guys
Right.
all the time for a lot of money, and no offense, but they're probably going to send that 22-year-old that they just signed for
Sure.
$2 million up before you. So it was tough. It was really tough. It was tough to watch. I mean, talk about highs and lows.
Yeah.
I never thought I would know how to dissect somebody's swing or anything before, but I appreciate the sport so much more than I ever thought I could. And yeah, I'm grateful for that time. It was cool. It was cool to be a WAG, and it was cool to like go through all of that. Some of my closest friends are some of the girls and wives that I met.
That's awesome.
And you know, it was an isolated but special time in our lives.
So who's your baseball team now? Who are you guys rooting for?
We don't, you know, he doesn't really watch a lot of
Really?
baseball anymore.
He's kinda
It's
just needs to
kinda hard
separate
for
from it?
him.
Yeah, I
We still
understand.
root for the Nats because
Okay.
that was the organization he was with, and some of his buddies are on the team
I mean,
still.
they won the World Series this year.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that
it's
was
a pretty
awesome.
good year.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So I think one of the things I love about your story is just really open and honest about everything. You came out with talking about MS a couple years ago, which I give you a ton of credit for.
Thanks.
And something you lived with for a really long time. But to unearth that to the public, what was the scariest part of that experience for you?
You know, I think I just gotten so used to like living with the secret and it being my own that it allowed me to sort of be in denial when I could about it. I think it was just like that level of feeling exposed and everybody knowing like my deepest, darkest secret. We all have things we don't tell people, and that was my thing. And so it just felt like everybody knew everything about me. And I didn't know how people were going to react. And it's still been a transition for me. Let me start by saying that it's been overwhelmingly supportive and lovely, and I couldn't be more grateful with how wonderful people have been, especially at work. But one of the things is like people are always, and so nicely, willing to offer help and how can we fix this and make this easier. And that's where it's hard for me because I don't want to feel like I'm a special case.
You don't want to feel different.
No. Yeah. But the truth is I am. And I've had to surrender to that and be like, yeah, you know, it would be easier if we did it this way. And I'm getting much better at that because I'm realizing it makes my life easier. And also people like to feel needed and they like to feel of service. And it's allowed for some really nice connection, like human to human connection that maybe I wouldn't have had without it.
How have you handled the mental part of it? Because it was, what, 20 years old when you were first diagnosed? I mean, it's a big chapter of your life. It's over a decade now.
You're
so what have
absolutely
been the hardest parts mentally for you?
I think that was the thing, was when I came out about it, it shifted from like always focusing on the physical to being like, oh, whoa, this has really been a lot for me emotionally as well. It's been an incarnation of a lot of different things. Therapy. I think it's sort of led me down like a different spiritual path, and I have a different idea of like what God is and all of that, and it makes me feel better and makes me feel more rooted with my belief system. I've sort of trying to like shift all my perspective. Like, yeah, it's slowed me down, but with slowing me down, it allows me to be more present and notice more things and appreciate smaller moments. Smaller moments are big moments now. And I think that I used to also worry about what it would take away from my relationship with my kids, like things that I couldn't do that I would have to sacrifice and like send them off to do with other people. And I still sometimes feel bad about that, but at the same time, I realize maybe I'm also raising some pretty empathetic, more sensitive boys.
Totally, and you can only do so much. And raising boys in this generation is a really important thing. So to even focus on that is something that, even when I was growing up, that's not something that you're focusing on.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely
it's a big responsibility to raise boys right now. I feel that. But I feel lucky that I have two men under my wing that I can kind of shepherd.
Totally. You mentioned the spiritual thing. Like, some people could just like run away and say, you know, why has this happened to me? What has it been like trying to just unpack all of this and just really think critically about spirituality and faith? Because it's like, it should be something that evolves over time, and it's not something that's just static. So how have you let that happen in your life?
Well, I think I grew up with like this idea that God was, yes, this all-forgiving, unconditional, but like somebody would also like punish you and like be mad at you. And so that was always really confusing to me. And so when I was struggling really badly with my MS emotionally, prior to me coming forward about it, I started seeing kind of like a life coach. And we started doing some work with something called A Course in Miracles, and just like shifted my perspective of like universe and God and all of that. And I used to feel like such a victim, and I was being punished, and I did something wrong to deserve this. And it just broadens the spectrum, and you realize just like that we're all connected. That's what I believe, and that this is just a story. I think just what my spirituality allows me is like things feel so heavy. They don't feel so important. Like this is just like, this is my one lifetime, and like, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
like
you can let go of it. You know, you're holding on so tightly to it, but you can actually just release it.
And with acceptance, like, allows space. And so I think accepting things, and so that's why I had this tattooed, and so it is when I was going through that process, because it's just accepting things and then trusting things has opened so many doors for me after I adapted that.
It's released you in a sense.
Completely.
That's really cool. So when people check this out, you're going to be released in a whole new world here.
Yes, Josephine is a force.
So what do you want people to think once they watch this movie? What are some of the big takeaways for you?
Well, first of all, it's a true story that many people don't know about. In 1957, in a small town in Appalachian, New York, they had the biggest meeting of the mob ever from like states all over, hundreds of them. And it's told from the perspective of the law enforcement, particularly one officer played by David Arquette and P.J. Byrne and Jennifer Esposito.
Yeah, you got a great cast in here.
Yeah. And it has, like I said, it has a love story. It has these wacky guys. It has the action. It has the drama. It has the comedy. It's not 3.5 hours. You know, it's
a tight 90 minutes. That's what we're into.
Yeah, tight 90 minutes. And it's just fun. It's a great throwback mob movie with fun performances, and I had a great time.
Good deal. Jamie, really nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
so nice to meet you.
December 13th, the big day for Mobtown in theaters, on demand streaming. For Jamie, I'm DJ. See you next time here on The Sit Down.